If you're looking to get to an advanced level of English, that's a great goal to have. You're on the right track. But what exactly is advanced English? And how do you even know you got there? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thiago here, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. In case you're listening to me for the first time, I have created this podcast and YouTube channel to help intermediate and advanced learners of English communicate with more confidence, more accuracy, more clarity, and more awareness. If this sounds like something you want for yourself and your English, subscribe right now to the channel. That way you won't miss a single new episode here on YouTube. And if you usually listen to our podcasts on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow the show so you don't miss a single new episode. Also, don't forget to check out my pronunciation course. This is a course I've created to help you master the main sounds of the English language and the main connected speech patterns that you hear native speakers using in real life and in media. This knowledge will help you speak with more fluency, more clarity, better flow, and also better understand fast-spoken English. I'm offering the course now at a very special price, still on pre-sale. So if you want to learn more about how you can purchase the course, the link is here in the description of the video and also in the show notes of this episode if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. About 4 years ago, I did a live on my Instagram account talking about this topic, defining advanced English. But now I want to do a remake of that topic so that we have a more updated version of my definition of advanced English. I've already talked about the CEFR levels here on the channel, and I've already defined the C1 and C2 levels based on the CEFR descriptors. But in today's episode, I want to give you my personal take on advanced English, what I consider to be advanced English, taking into account my almost 2-decade experience as an English teacher, almost taking into account the fact that I have helped hundreds, by now if not thousands of people, get to advanced levels. And I myself am a learner of English, and I have gotten to advanced level as well. I hold both the C1 certificate from Cambridge and the C2 proficiency certificate from Cambridge. So taking all that into account, I want to give you today my personal description of advanced English. How would you have to perform, let's say, when it comes to your English, so that I could consider you an advanced user of the language, okay? I want to start by talking about fluency. Fluency is a must. If you are not fluent enough, you could never be considered an advanced user of English. So in order for you to be considered an advanced user or speaker of English, you need to have a very good level of fluency already in place. Let me define fluency here again so that we can refresh our memories. What is fluency? I view fluency as your ability to communicate your idea, to express yourself, your thoughts, without pausing too much, without hesitating too much. Also, it's your ability of being able to understand people when they talk to you. If you are able to hold a conversation and you understand people, when you speak and communicate, people understand you, and you are able to successfully convey ideas, even though you might make mistakes along the way and speak with some inaccuracies, I would consider that fluency. So how can you improve your fluency? If you feel like your fluency level is not as you would like it to be, what are some things you can do? Well, first of all, you need to speak more often. It's kind of obvious, but it's true. If you feel like you need more fluency in your speech, you need to practice speaking more often. Do more of the thing that you lack, okay? You can try to find people online for this. Nowadays, with the internet, you can look for websites, for apps that connect you with other people so that you can practice speaking English with them. You can have classes either at a language school near your house or online. Nowadays, you can hire a private teacher. You can join a conversation club, have classes in groups. You can talk to a friend. If you happen to know a friend who speaks English or he is also learning English, you could arrange with this friend to practice conversation once or twice a week. And obviously, you can also talk to yourself. by speaking out loud when you are alone at home, when you are in your office, nobody's watching, nobody's listening to you. Practice vocalizing the words, making the sounds of English. This is really important because sometimes you might have a lot of knowledge of English in your head, but when it's time to produce that language, to vocalize it, to speak it out loud, you feel tongue-tied. You don't feel like your muscles of articulation are in place or well developed. Why? Lack of practice. So even by yourself, you can practice speaking English by talking to yourself, speaking out loud. One thing I used to do a lot back in the day was reading texts out loud. I would pick a random book or a random article and practice reading that text out loud. That's one of the reasons why nowadays I feel like I have very good skills when it comes to that. I can read something out loud to you guys here. You see that all the time very well because I've practiced this. It's a skill, being able to read something out loud, and it's great for your speaking ability as well. When it comes to improving your fluency, I would also say improving pronunciation. So making sure you are pronouncing the words as correctly as possible, as clearly as possible. You are making the right sounds. And still talking about fluency, mistakes are fine because you are practicing fluency or the flow, okay? As long as you are making mistakes that don't interfere with your communication, with your message, that is not necessarily bad for your fluency. I also like to talk about this idea of rehearsing versus performing. Think about a band, a rock band that has to perform a concert at a stadium for thousands of people. What does this band do before? They rehearse. They go to a studio by themselves, just the 4 or 5 guys, and they spend months rehearsing their set. Rehearsal is all about fixing the mistakes, getting the practice down, feeling more comfortable with those songs, so that when they go out there on stage in the stadium to start performing, they can give a nice performance. They can amuse and entertain the audience. But when it's time to perform, they shouldn't be worried about mistakes. And it's normal for live music sometimes to contain mistakes. But what matters is that you are in the moment playing for your audience. Bringing that to English learning, the same principle applies. When you are studying by yourself at home, when you are practicing more deliberately, you are rehearsing. But if you are in a conversation with someone in real life, at work, when you are traveling, this is the moment to perform. When you have to give a presentation in front of people at work, this is the moment to perform. So don't let your perfection get in the way, because that's going to hurt your fluency. If you freeze up, if you get paralyzed, that will hurt your fluency. So remember, fluency is not necessarily the absence of mistakes, but it's the ability to be present in the moment in your communication and keep talking, keep delivering your message, even with some bumps in the road. That's how I view fluency. And that's the first major component you need to have in place to be considered an advanced user of English. You have to have a very good level of fluency already. But of course, fluency is not enough for you to reach advanced levels like C1 or C2 levels. Just being fluent, at least as far as I'm concerned, doesn't qualify you as an advanced speaker of English. Maybe it qualifies you as a good user of English, as an upper intermediate user of English, which is fine. But I would never consider a person advanced just because this person is quote unquote fluent in the language. Because we also have to look at the quality of this fluency and how many mistakes this person makes. Which brings me to the second major component of advanced English, which is accuracy. Accuracy is also part of advanced levels. What is accuracy? Accuracy is your precision, is how precisely, how correctly, how spot on your sentences are when you speak them and when you write them. All right? And the idea is that the more advanced you become as an English user, the fewer mistakes you make. One of the main differences between a B2 level learner and a C1 level learner is that the C1 level learner, while makes mistakes sometimes, the frequency of mistakes is much lower than the frequency of mistakes a B2 learner makes. So the C1 user makes fewer mistakes than the B2 user makes. And consequently, the C2 user also makes fewer mistakes than the C1 user makes. So the idea is the higher your proficiency level gets, the fewer mistakes you make. I'm not here to demonize mistakes. We all make mistakes. And also, I consider mistakes an integral part of the learning process, meaning that if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. But the frequency of mistakes is the key here. Just to give a specific number, something more concrete, I like to think about 90% level of accuracy. So for you, if you want to reach higher levels of proficiency, if you want to be considered a true advanced user of English, aim for at least 90% accuracy when it comes to producing language. 90%, meaning that maybe for every sentence you utter or for every sentence you write, maybe one word is going to be a little bit off. Or for every 100 words you produce, maybe 10 words will be a little bit off. This is like tops. Ideally, you want to strive for more than that. 95% accuracy, 97, 98% accuracy. Don't worry about being 100% accurate, because this is quite a challenge, I would say. And I think striving to be 100% accurate in your communication is not healthy, to be honest. But it doesn't mean that you should just not care at all. So I would say strive to be as accurate as possible while producing language, and strive to have this accuracy level reside in the 90% range, between 90 and 99% accuracy level. I think this is a good range of accuracy for a person to be considered a true advanced user of English, okay? When it comes to mistakes, there are two kinds of mistakes. There are mistakes that interfere with the communication, and the mistakes that don't interfere with the communication. For a B2 level learner, I'm talking about B2 here, okay? Upper intermediate. For a B2 level learner, I think that mistakes that don't interfere with the communication are fine. I think it's okay for a B2 level learner to make quite a handful of mistakes when speaking English, as long as those mistakes don't interfere with the communication. I would still consider that learner a good speaker of English and a fluent speaker of English. Okay? Now, when it comes to more advanced learners, C1 and C2, we also have to look at mistakes that are too basic, because I do believe that by the time you get to C1 and C2 levels, there are certain mistakes in English that you shouldn't be making often, or you shouldn't be making at all, because these mistakes are just too basic. For example, he eat breakfast every day. He eat breakfast every day. You understand what I'm saying? It's a mistake. There's a mistake here, but you still understand what I'm saying. But for a C1, C2 learner to be uttering this, to me, it's a little bit like, because it's just a mistake that is too basic. What's the correct way here? He eats, right? He eats breakfast every day. Or saying good night when greeting people. Imagine you join a call, you arrive at a party, and then you say to everybody, hey guys, good night. Hello, good night. For an advanced speaker to be making this is just, to me, is out of the question. Again, very basic mistake. And you guys know what the correct way is here, right? When you arrive someplace, you say good evening. So to say hello, you say good evening, and to say goodbye, you say good night. Okay? So for a B1, even B2 learner to slip that mistake is fine, you know? But for a C1, C2 learner, maybe I would start doubting how advanced your English really is. Okay? Another example of mistake that I consider to be off limits, you know, when it comes to advanced speakers of English, mistakes that you shouldn't be making at advanced levels. Have versus there is and there are. This is specifically true when it comes to Brazilian learners. I see many Brazilian learners using have when they should be using there is or there are. For example, in my city have many parks. In my city have many parks? No. In my city there are many parks. There are. You see, there are, there is, there was, there were, there will be, there is going to be, there have been. So C1, C2 levels shouldn't be making this mistake anymore. Okay? So when it comes to advanced levels, these kinds of mistakes that are just too basic, I believe they shouldn't be made anymore. Now, what kind of mistakes are okay at advanced levels? I would say mistakes that first don't interfere with your communication. That's one point. But more than that, because this also applies to B2 learners, mistakes related to more sophisticated language. Because to be more advanced, you should be pushing yourself. You should be trying to deliberately use more advanced vocabulary, constructions, expressions. So if when trying to use more sophisticated language, you make a mistake, that'll be okay. That's a mistake that I consider okay for an advanced user of English because you are pushing what you can do in terms of proficiency. And also, I would say slips of the tongue. What is a slip of the tongue? A slip of the tongue is a mistake that you make when you speak, not because you don't know that topic that you just made a mistake about, not because you don't know, not because of ignorance or lack of knowledge. You know, but maybe you mispronounce something or you say something inaccurately due to tiredness, distraction, sickness, because when it comes to communicating verbally, like I'm doing right now, there are days when we don't feel much up to it, guys. Some days you feel more rested, you feel more energized. Therefore, you feel like your communication flows much better. You can speak much better. But other days, you just don't feel as fluent. It's okay. So maybe you are tired, maybe you are distracted, maybe you are sick. If you make a mistake while speaking English in those circumstances, I think that's okay, even for advanced level learners. These are called slips of the tongue, mistakes that you make them not because you don't know about them, but because of other circumstances. Tiredness, distraction, nervousness, sickness, that kind of thing. Okay? Now, you might be asking right now, which one is more important, or which one do I think is more important, fluency or accuracy? Of course, guys, fluency. Between fluency and accuracy, I would say that being fluent is more important than being accurate, because the main purpose of learning a language is to communicate with other people, to make connections, to make friendships, to build maybe a business network for your career. That's the main purpose, connection, communication. So it's much better for you to be fluent, but maybe making mistakes along the way, but people understand what you're saying, than being super accurate, but taking forever to utter a sentence. So ideally, the ideal scenario would be this. Think of fluency as the most important feature or trait that you want to develop in yourself, but at the same time, don't forsake accuracy. Accuracy is also extremely important, especially if you strive to be more advanced. So I would say that accuracy comes close second. It's like this, fluency is here, accuracy is right here. You see, it's not at the same level, but it's right there. It's really important. So ideally, you want to develop yourself like this. Keep working on your fluency, but also keep working on your accuracy at the same time. All right? And when it comes to developing your accuracy, there are many areas you can attack. You can attack vocabulary. You can work on being more accurate when it comes to vocabulary. What does it mean to be accurate with your vocabulary? Well, being more precise with the words you choose, with your word choice, using the words more properly, using a wider range of words as well in expressions. But you can also work on being more accurate with your grammar, constructing sentences that are correct from a grammar standpoint, not making mistakes when it comes to verb conjugation, preposition use, auxiliary verb use, that kind of thing. And you can also work on being more accurate in your pronunciation. Being more accurate in your pronunciation involves learning the sounds of English, pronouncing the words, making the right sounds. This is not about accent, it's about pronunciation. That's why I've created my pronunciation course, to help you learn this stuff. So you can work on your accuracy from a vocabulary standpoint, from a grammar standpoint, a pronunciation standpoint, and even from a listening standpoint as well. Developing your listening skills so they become really sharp. That's another key feature of an advanced user of English. You have very good listening skills, very sharp skills, meaning that when you listen to a passage in English, yes, you are able to understand the main gist of that passage, but not only the main gist, you are also able to understand specific information that was said in that passage. And you are even able to repeat what was said verbatim because your listening skills are so precise, so accurate. You see, so accuracy is definitely part of becoming an advanced user of English. Moving on, I would also say that another trait of advanced English, I think, is sophistication. Being more sophisticated in your language use. How can you be more sophisticated in your language use? When talking about vocabulary, well, by expanding the range of options you have when it comes to vocabulary. Using different words, phrasal verbs, idioms, collocations. Using maybe synonyms. You don't repeat the same word all the time, but you are able to use synonyms, antonyms, a wide range of vocabulary at your disposal, both passively and actively. Some topics here that you can consider studying more about so that you can expand your range. Word formation. I've recently published a podcast episode here on the channel about word formation. You can watch it and check it out if you haven't yet. So word formation is a great topic for you to master. Learning more phrasal verbs, learning more idioms, learning the difference between formal English and informal English. We also call them the registers, formal register versus informal register. This is another key component of advanced English. And of course, like I said, synonyms. Just to give an example, think of the word look, the verb look. Learn synonyms that are similar in meaning to look, like gaze, peek, glance, glimpse, stare, glare. You see, all these are synonyms to the verb look. They don't mean exactly the same thing as look. They mean looking at a specific way, but knowing words like that adds to your vocabulary range of options. And for an advanced learner of English, knowing words like these is crucial. You can also work on being more sophisticated in your grammar and how you use the structures of the English language. So you should also have a wide range of structures at your disposal. when you write a piece of text, when you give a presentation, when you communicate an idea verbally. Okay? I would recommend, not obsessing over terminology here. So don't obsess over learning the terms present perfect continuous, first conditional, reported speech, passive voice. Don't obsess over the terminology, but focus on the functions these structures have. For example, first conditional. What is the function of first conditional? Making predictions about the future, threatening someone. Okay, learn that and focus on that. What is the purpose of reported speech? Reporting what someone else told you. He said, she said. So focus on the function, not necessarily the terminology. Unless you are a grammar lover, you are a grammar enthusiast like I am, then it's okay for you to learn the terminology. Or if you aspire to be an English teacher, if you want to become an English teacher, then yes, you should know the terminology because, this is part of your toolbox as an English teacher, okay? But if you are just a person who is looking to improve their English, to work in another area, for traveling, or for personal development, don't obsess over grammar terminology, but learn how the functions work. Learn the different functions that grammar provides. Some examples of topics here that I believe that by the time you reach C1 level, you should have mastered already, or you should be on the way to master those. Conditionals, 0, first, second, third, and mixed conditionals. Reported speech, passive voice, gerunds and infinitives, when to use to go, when to use going, for example, and inversions. That's another good one, inversions, all right? So these are some topics that I consider essential for anybody striving to get to C1 and C2 levels of English when it comes to grammar. Finally, I would say that the last component of advanced English for me is mastery. Advanced English comes with this level of mastery of the language. Because when it comes to an upper intermediate learner, a B2 learner, I would say that that person has a good command of the English language. That person has good communication skills in English and is able to operate successfully in most everyday situations. That's great for many people already. But if you are striving to get to C1 and C2 levels, there is also a certain aspect of mastery that comes with it. It's not just about having a good command of the English language, but having mastery of the English language. Being in a place where you have mastered the English language at an exceptional level, okay? I would say that mastery comes with time and as a combination, as a result of all the 3 points I just explained to you. Mastery in English is a combination of fluency, accuracy, and sophistication over a sustained period of time. If you are able to sustainably, consistently communicate fluently, make connections, operate well in everyday situations, if you are able to be highly accurate in your language use, at least 90% level of accuracy, okay? And if you are able to use sophisticated vocabulary from time to time, play with more sophisticated constructions or structures from time to time, and you can do that over a sustained period of time, this is mastery. These are indicators that you have finally mastered the English language to an exceptional level. And I would say that it's an ongoing process. We never stop learning. Mastery is something, for me at least, that is ongoing. It's not a North Star. It's something that you are always developing. You are always becoming better and better at English, especially because even if you do get to a high level of English proficiency, and you can attest that through an exam, maybe you get a C1 certificate or C2 certificate, After that, if you stop studying, if you stop practicing, if you stop the contact with the language, you will get rusty and you will start to slowly lose the high level of proficiency you acquired. So mastery of the language is an ongoing process. You should always be in touch with English. You should always be learning new stuff, pushing yourself as an English user and communicator. Let me give you an example here, guys, a personal example when it comes to playing guitar. As you know, I play guitar as well, and I started playing guitar when I was 7. Very young. My dad, he also plays, and he was the one who introduced me to the instrument and who taught me my first chords, my first songs. So I started playing at 7, and then I got introduced to electric guitar and rock and roll guitar at 13, and I've been playing ever since. Now, it's been decades already that I play guitar. And while I consider myself a decent guitar player, I can operate well in many social situations when it comes to music. I have played in bands in the past. I've had cover bands. I've written original songs. Even though I am a decent, competent guitar player, I still feel like I need to continue mastering the instrument. I still learn about the instrument. I still study about it. I'm taking a course now and learning new shapes of scales and new ways of playing the same thing that I already know. And I'm constantly learning, you see, because I want to reach higher levels of proficiency or mastery in the instrument. The same thing applies to English learning. It will come a time when you're going to be very operational. And I know that for some people, maybe for most people, that's enough. They're already happy with that B2 operational level of English. That's fine. But if you want more for yourself, for your English, let's say, journey, then, you're going to have to embark on this ongoing process of continuous mastery of the language, even when you get to C1 and C2 levels of English. All right. So just to recap, these are the 4 main components, in my opinion, from where I'm standing, that advanced English requires you to have. For me to consider you a true advanced user of the language, you need to have these 4 points: good level of fluency, high level of accuracy, sophistication, and being, let's say, invested in this ongoing process of mastery. If you can apply these 4 components here, you are well on your way to reaching a true advanced level of English. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode today. I hope you enjoyed learning more about my definition of advanced English. I hope it helped you. Thank you so much for listening until now. Don't forget to check out my pronunciation course. The link is here in the description of the video, also in the show notes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you are listening here on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and share the channel with your friends and family. I am trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. That's the first big milestone here on the channel. So I count on your support to help me grow here on YouTube so that I can impact even more people and help them better learn this beautiful language, which is English. Guys, I'm Thiago. I'm signing off. Thank you so much, and I'll be talking to you very soon in the upcoming video. Bye-bye.